approach. Hers was feeble. And it looks as if even in between, they went for out-of-court settlement. So really, the thing was hanging till Martin comes in to energize or re-energize it. So with this crisis, and this integrity crisis, even the government system, the whole governance structures are confronted with a serious integrity crisis. Then there are personalities whose names or whose roles are associated with this integrity crisis. Obviously, either your boss asks you to step aside in order to facilitate the process of inquiry, or you voluntarily step aside in order to, you know, help the same process. So I'm not surprised that Madam Betty Mould eventually stepped aside. But if my earlier information was right, that means that the president himself had indicated that direction to her and Martin. This, as I said, was unconfirmed. It's still unconfirmed. But
and the NPP is asking that she be indicted. You think that's a reasonable?
I don't know what they mean by indicted. Is it of a legal implication? How do you proceed to indict? Who indicts? There are processes that must begin before you have what you call a prima facie case to say, I must indict somebody. If you want, one, explanation for why she's resigned, and two, an inquiry into the circumstances surrounding the resignation because you believe that it is linked to Williame Gate, fair deal. But to begin to say indict by whom? Who indicts? And how do we indict? We indict, as far as I know, on basis of certain material particulars. And those material particulars can be unearthed through a certain preliminary inquiry.
Like one by Yoko?
Well, as I've said, I don't have a problem with Yoko's constitutional mandate or legal mandate. I don't have a problem with it. The law is a creature of law, an act of parliament. They are supposed to do all those things. I have said I have problems. I'm cynical, but I'm not sure that the question you asked.
I'm just asking because I'm thinking, what form or what process of, like you say, initial investigations to establish a prima facie case should be used, for instance? In principle,
the Yoko thing is not out of the option. It is a body mandated by law to do investigation. There are reasons why people have raised questions, and we can discuss those things. But in principle, in terms of the law, Yoko is mandated to do what he's doing. I hope you understand what the point I'm making. Shraj could also look into it and do something. They may, maybe after preliminary investigation, say, hey, these areas are in court. And you know, Shraj is stopped from going into cases that are before the court. So they may come to that conclusion. There are many other bodies, the parliamentary, the Public Accounts Committee, from the angle of an audit findings made by the Auditor General and submitted to Parliament, are also mandated to do something to that extent. Okay, maybe there are other areas they may not be able to go in. Or there's an option of even calling the CID to investigate, BNI to investigate, or an independent public inquiry. Bottom line, there ought to be an inquiry that is transparent and that is fair and firm. That is non-negotiable.
And this inquiry will cover what and what from what you say?
You see, relative to Williame, because there's an attempt to create a forest of issues in order to hide the trees. But let's look at all judgment deaths. We will look at that subsequently. But now we have an issue with Williame Gate.
Okay.
And that is that we have been told by the state, as we speak, that there was fraudulent misrepresentation by Mr. Williame, and a collusion by Mr. Williame and Waterville to dupe the state in taking that, procuring that big, huge amount of money. We are told by the state.
Yeah, which the state has to go and defend.
Oh yes, but I'm saying that, and I believe the state. I am convinced. I was there before the state arrived there. This particular point.
Hopefully the state to find the evidence to support.
And we are told by the same state. We are told by the same state that they effected payment based on a mistaken belief that a gentleman had a contract. We are also told by the gentleman that he never had a contract. Look, the circumstances put together, combined effect, is so convincing.
So you think there should be an inquiry of sorts?
Yes. I haven't judged. I've said the circumstances convinces me that something very gargantuan.
Yeah, bye-bye. All right, which necessitates an investigation.
Yes.
Let's hear Bernard on this.
I like to start sportive to say that I want to wish the Black Stars well.
Okay, I see that you brought your flag to them.
Yeah, today.
We all wish the Black Stars well.
Yeah, certainly. They play Mali, and it's an important day for us. It's a very complex issue. It's difficult to conclude, except for what Madame Betty Mould herself has said, that her conscience is clear. And if we have to take it from that angle, what it simply means is that it's in relation to this Williame saga, because at the Ministry of Education, I'm not sure that anything untoward has come on her. So for her to openly come and say she's resigning with a clear conscience, it means that it is this whole hula baloo of Williame, how much Williame got, and whether it is legal or illegal, whether the state had a contract with Williame or not. And many other questions that has arisen, particularly given that she was the Attorney General under whose office term this payment was made, and obviously captured by the Auditor's General report. So I think that, as has happened in the past and will continue to happen, nobody offers a clear explanation as to why they are resigning, particularly when they are in office. And governments and the presidents...
Should we continue along those lines?
I'm not sure whether we can compel it. That is the point. I'm not sure whether there is anywhere we can compel that the president must offer explanation.
What about the resigning? This one is not the president sacking. This is somebody opting to
The president
leave.
decides to appoint somebody, and the person decides to accept. When the president nominates somebody for appointment, the person accepts the nomination before the person is subjected to vetting and then subsequent approval. And so if the person did not give any reason for accepting the appointment, why would he give or she give reason for refusing? That is the complex situation we have. Whilst we have a legitimate call to say, look, we are government officials, we are citizens also of the country. We need to understand who and what informs certain decisions. Unfortunately, we are limited by the laws of our land that we can't go probing, and the president can decide to appoint or not to appoint. But I think that all in all, for me, it's long overdue that in many other countries, when ministers' offices come to some question, the first thing they do is, if they are really clear of whatever, they step aside for investigations to go on.
Do you think that she waited too long?
Well,
you say it's long overdue.
It's long overdue, particularly that her name has come up. I've heard the minority make that call a long time. The argument has been made that she was no more at the Attorney General, so she could not have impeded investigations whatsoever, particularly that now that she was at the Ministry of Education. How could anyone say that her being in education could actually affect work at the Attorney General?
So then why did she need to resign? Because she's in education.
That is the point. But I think that it was like a bad blood between Madame Betty Mould and also the Attorney General, because the Attorney General comes out to make statements that points to the fact that it is Betty Mould and her influence that is allowing some sessions of what he described as partisan rented.
I don't recall him mentioning names, unless you're deducing.
I say that suggesting
okay.
that is the point, suggesting that is what happens, and therefore, if you have
if I may probe that further, because if I recall correctly, Betty herself was a subject of criticism by the same media. So how can we reconcile the two? She wasn't spared by the NDC press when she was Attorney General. She probably was even more harassed and written about than Martin Amidu ever could have been.
But she never came to describe anybody as partisan. She never came out to describe as rented. She never said that they have been bought to...
So on what basis can we deduce safely...
Betty says actually safely.
No, I'm saying, on what basis can we safely deduce then that in Martin Amidu's statement, when he says a minister was paying, in quotes, the rented press, that in fact he was referring to Betty?
I'm saying that, given that Betty was the immediate past Attorney General, and that Martin was the Attorney General in place, and if there was an issue with the immediate past Attorney General, in whose case we are discussing her involvement, complicity in a crime, negligence or whatever, and all of a sudden somebody comes and says, look, I'm being bashed on this particular matter because some sessions of the media has been bought by a colleague. What that simply means is pointing out to the predecessor.
Okay, that's your interpretation.
Yes, that is what. And I think that with that bloodbath, it's not prudent for any government to want to have any one of them, any president want to have any one of them still in the government. So the best point, if I got it right, was the news we all read that the president had asked for full provision of facts, particularly in the case of Martin Amidu, to support and to come out with what the Gargantuan crime or crimes are, who are those involved in those trying to ensure that he's not able to get to the bottom of the matter, and that given his inability to do so, he had to be sacked. And at the end of the day, he was unable to prove, if the media stories are anything to go by. His inability to prove is what led to his dismissal. But on the other side, you have this particular minister that everybody is suspecting that she may be the reason, and she said, no, I couldn't have been the reason. Let me also step aside so that if there can be any investigations, it should be investigated. I think that right now that both are not in, we hope that the new Attorney General will be able to put his feet so that Ghana can get to the bottom of this matter. We can't just lose money the way we lose it.
What kind of investigation would you recommend is done, given the circumstances, to investigate the whole Williame thing, which led obviously to the dismissal, if you like, of Martin Amidu, now the resignation of Betty, and the continuing discussion that is ongoing? I
have been on record to state that I don't think that a bipartisan parliamentary, if you wanted, parliamentary investigation can lead us anywhere.
So what do you think can?
Better than what the IOCO can do. That is my position. And I've stated this that...
Should the IOCO be open so there is a public inquiry that
I have said that what prevents people from asking the IOCO whether even the investigations that they are doing, hearings that they want to conduct, the IOCO can grant them to do it in the open. People can go there, journalists can go and ask questions, listen to what testimonies people have to give. And that is why I thought that our friends who were ministers before this transaction took place would want to avail every opportunity to the people of Ghana. If you can go to the media and talk to the media about Gargantuan crimes, if you can go to the media and put out documents, and you are invited by a state institution and you say you will not go, I don't think that you are doing the people of Ghana any good. You want to take every opportunity to explain that you did not enter into a contract and that payments that have been made are not justified. But if you are stepping away from what all of us think that should help us, and because your perception is that that institution is not qualified enough to investigate the matter, and therefore we should suffer. I think that governance is a process. Tomorrow, why? Another political party will be in place. Should we as political parties decide that no, if government asks us to go to an institution, we will determine which institution is best fit for this. It's not healthy for our economy. And I think that I don't support the call that we should boycott these things. We should go and come out to say how inadequate that institution is in conducting the investigations and the mandates that they have.
Napo?
Thank you, Martin, and good morning to your listeners. I would like to start this Betty Mould issue from the NDC's rented press, or criminally minded section of the NDC press.
To borrow Martin Amidu's words.
And I'll tell you why I'm beginning to believe that those statements from Martin Amidu is not, we shouldn't take it lightly. Martin, on your show last week, one of the people I may describe in Martin Amidu's words, young and inexperienced members of the communication team of the NDC who are absolutely ignorant of the function of the Attorney General of Ghana. One came here and put out a statement there that
I don't know if they are inexperienced.
I said I believe Martin Amidu.
Okay, but he didn't mention that person's name. So
yes, and I believe one person who comes here and is young and is part of the NDC communication team should first and foremost avail himself of the true facts when speaking to Ghanaians.
So anybody, it doesn't matter their age.
Oh, this was young. And I think all of the issues are with around the young people, persons. Came here and spewed out what I would say, in all honesty, nonsense on this airwaves. To the effect that the Asantehene has been paid money. I would like to start from there. I went on another TV and debunked it as a member of my parliament from Asia and a direct relation to the Asantehene and direct knowledge of the facts and consequences about this particular judgment debt.
Okay, before you proceed, I'd just like to say that I remember that on this same program last week, we came to the decision and conclusion at the end of the program, having seen the list, that the person in question was a person called Nana Kwekudia.